Hello. This is a podcast where four friends are getting together and we are talking about some really cool things and trying to get each other to say, "Holy fucking science!" So if you don't want to listen to swears, then maybe turn it off. But sorry, I didn't give you the warning before that.
You clicked on the link that said "Holy fucking science" somewhere in the title.
With a little asterisk. So I am not Hank. I don't think I'm doing anything Hank-like right now either, besides being on this podcast. My name is Ceri Riley, and I am an editor of words on SciShow and all of the SciShow channels besides kids. And with me, I have three wonderful people. To my left is Sarah.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I am good. Yes. How are you?
Good.
Yes, I am Sarah Suta. I am an editor of picture and animation and things on regular SciShow and Space, and I did one Psych episode, but mostly Space and regular. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like this means of differentiating words and pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then to my right, I have Valerie, who is on for the first time.
Woo! I'm excited and very nervous.
It's good. Do you want to tell the podcast people what you do?
Yeah, I work for VidCon. I am a content coordinator, which means I help plan and execute all the programming at our events.
Cool. This is really exciting. I don't think I've hosted with someone for the first time on, so I hope it's fun.
No pressure for either of us, I guess.
Yeah, we could just be really nervous and everything will be fine.
Cool.
And goofy. And then I also have Alyssa here.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Do you want to talk about what you do too? You've
Sure.
been on before.
I have been on before. I am senior editor for SciShow of words.
Aha.
So all the SciShow channels, the words and the ideas sometimes. Although I have to say, Val, that of all of the people who don't work for SciShow anymore, at least, you have contributed more ideas than pretty much anyone else.
Well, I'm still in your Slack channel, so I have thoughts and then I type them in there and let you guys deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're good thoughts, and we really appreciate it.
I love having ideas turn into things that I don't have to do anything. Somebody else makes them happen, and then they're on the internet, and I can say, I told them to do that, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why the podcast is so much pressure, because you got to, say your own ideas.
Yeah.
You're responsible for all your facts here, but that's what makes it fun, too. And so we're all here because we are all humans with bodies, and that's the theme of this week's episode, is the fact that we all have bodies and that humans are weird. That was my segue. And
Beautiful. Very good.
Worked well.
So usually Hank comes up with a weird question to figure out who is going first. And so I guess the question will be, we talked a little bit about this beforehand, who had hiccups least recently, maybe? We'll go first. So when did you last have hiccups?
Should I start? I can start.
Okay. I have to think. I came up with this question and then didn't think.
I had the hiccups 2 nights ago for an hour while playing video games over voice chat. And I don't know if I've ever had the hiccups in front of any of you, but they're kind of loud and a little bit violent. The way I have the hiccups, at least.
Did you tell the people that you had the hiccups, or did they just think you were making lots of weird noises?
So I was playing with my brothers and the game, and I did tell them that it was because I had the hiccups, but it scared them sometimes because they were kind of loud.
Yeah, sure. Through a mic close to your face, it's probably weird too.
Yeah, ASMR hiccups.
Oh no! I already don't like ASMR, but hiccups would be very jarring.
Yes. I get hiccups, 1 or 2 hiccups every time I drink a carbonated beverage. So probably I had them today. I drank a Fresca for lunch.
Okay.
So.
And will you have them later on in this podcast?
No. Sometimes I don't think beer does it as much for some reason.
Weird.
It's other things, but yeah.
Different kinds of carbonation. Mm-hmm. Hiccups are weird. Bodies are weird.
Truth.
Thematic. I think I got hiccups November 5th.
That's very specific.
I
It's like
only
a
know-
week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, a week and a half ago. Sunday, but not last Sunday, like two Sundays ago, because we had our after Halloween party, and we had leftover apple cider, and I drank a bunch of apple cider in the morning, and then I got the hiccups to start my day, and it was not the best.
Oh,
Yeah, so I think it was then that I remember. Sarah?
I am not totally sure, but probably a month ago. I don't know. I remember watching a movie, but I don't remember which movie, at home and having the hiccups and my husband making fun of me a lot. But I think it was a while ago. I don't remember why. It was not just a random. There was a lot of like, you still have hiccups.
it's weird how like sometimes they go away immediately, and sometimes it's just like
Right.
hours and hours or something.
But if you watch the recent SciShow quiz show with Colin, you will learn that the surefire way to get rid of hiccups is digital rectal massage.
Oh, good. I'd rather have
welcome.
hiccups.
Digital?
As in finger.
Yes.
Oh, not robot.
I mean, I assume a robot can do the same thing,
Yes.
but proven, well, at least based on a case study by a doctor
Gosh.
that was published.
Good. We've already got the butts in the podcast.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
So I guess the order will be Sarah, me, Alyssa, Val.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that way you can watch us do our thing.
Sure.
And then I'll have to close it out with a really good thing.
Yeah, you just have to have the coolest thing.
Cool.
Okay.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. I believe in everyone. It's so easy to talk about how weird humans are because we're wacky.
Yeah. There's weird stuff.
So,
Yeah.
okay, whenever you're ready.
So, I was looking at various things and random stuff, and I saw a number of articles talking about the possibility that menstruation and puberty is starting earlier than it used to, and that the age is going down. And then there are tons of studies that are saying that in very conflicting ways. So just random thing. Your first menstrual period is called, does anyone know what it's called? There's a technical term.
You're blossoming.
Like a sciencey it's a menarche. Menarche is the term for your first period.
Menarche.
I don't know why.
It sounds kind of like malarkey.
It does.
Like,
it does.
It's a pretty good
fake.
description.
It sounds
Yeah.
like a form of government.
Oh, yeah.
Like a monarchy.
Yes.
Monarchy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Or run by men, which, that's a lot of them anyway.
Sure.
Run by people who menstruate.
Yes. Better.
Good.
But yeah, so there are a lot of studies saying that it is going up and down, or going down mostly. But anyway, the average menstruation age today, according to most studies, is 12 and a half years old. And that age has fluctuated throughout time, and it's hard to know exactly because people in the 1600s weren't doing huge studies on this, so it's mostly just weird anecdotal evidence. So we're fairly certain early Middle Ages, it was probably around 14, and then in the Renaissance, it was from things that we have looked, like what people had written down, we think it was around 16 years of age.
That's weird. You would think
Yeah.
it would be earlier because, like, they had to have kids earlier because they were dying sooner.
Well,
Yeah.
it's mostly because of malnutrition.
Everyone together now.
Yes. And they even said that there was an author in 1610 even pointed out that there was a weird class divide, that richer people got their periods earlier. And he said that, like, wealthier ladies were having children by an age that really poor working families hadn't even begun menstruating yet. And that's because they were so underfed, especially women. If the people had boys and girls, the boys would be getting more food.
Although, one thing
Yeah.
for anyone watching who might be giving sex advice to kids, you can become pregnant before you've had your first period. So, like,
Yes, in the month before. which I didn't realize.
I don't know if it's confined to just a month, but either way, not a reason to not use birth control.
Yuck.
Anyway, just a thing.
So is this from like doctors' journals or like old diaries or something?
It's like some of it is doctors and some of it is just like anecdotal random things. Like the guy who was talking about when women were having children, even though these women hadn't, like the person was anonymous. So who knows?
Right.
I'm imagining it's like, Dear Diary, today I had my first period, and also the fields are very barren this year, or something like that.
Exactly.
Like my sister got hers and I was just very jealous of this. I'm still stuck. Like
I mean, that's
till
basically all junior high school students talk about. So,
I don't know.
as far as I know.
I never talked about it. So
Okay,
maybe
it was
I know.
like very much talked about when I was in school.
Weird.
But sure.
Kids will be kids.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah. But yes, so it has gone down in the past century. It's from the things that we have where people started actually doing studies. It's still been between 12 and 13 the whole time, but in the past like 40 years, it's gone from like 12.8 years of age to 12.5. So it still is going down. But the weird thing is that the other secondary signs of puberty have definitely started earlier. And young girls are starting to get breasts sometimes as early as 10, 7. Yes, and that is a thing that people are super looking into right now. And there are some people believe that it might be due to being heavier because of the sort of obesity problems that have happened in some places, because I have so many notes.
That is a lot of notes.
It is a lot of notes. I printed a lot of stuff. So heavier girls have a higher level of the hormone leptin, which can lead to early puberty, when early puberty leads to higher estrogen levels, and that leads to greater insulin resistance, causing them to have more fat tissue, hence more leptin and more estrogen, and it does this cycle until they mature earlier than they really are supposed to. And it's a weird sort of extra level to it is that families get into this problem where if a lot of folks are maturing earlier, like parents are already, they don't want little girls to grow up, etc. And so they, like the kids get, children are horrible people. They get bullied and stuff in school for this. And so the parents say, well, maybe we should get them medication to stop this, or how do we treat them now? And then it's also normally that even though their body has matured, so maybe they look like they should be 12 years old and they're only 8, mentally they are still very much 8.
Right.
And and it's weird because in boys they have also seen there was a study done of 4,000 boys between ages of 6 and 16 where they measured the size of their testicles, and they are also maturing earlier, but it's not seen as nearly as much of a problem because for boys, when they start maturing, they just become more outgoing and better at athletics and things like that, which is not the same kind of weird pressure and weird society problems.
Visible.
Yeah.
And they also don't, I don't know. People have this, they want to keep girls very precious and whatnot. And it's weird. Yes. And it's a separate thing that is bleeding into this is there is an extra like hormonal problem, which is I think it's pernicious. Now I have to look that up.
Do they know what hormones are affecting do they have a theory for the younger boys?
They haven't,
or a
like,
hypothesis?
there have not been, there was that one study, but they didn't really go into it. Like, they didn't look at if it was body fat or what could be causing it. Mm-hmm. It was just like, they proved that it was happening.
Interesting.
But yeah, there's a separate problem that is pernicious puberty, which is when, and everything that I read, it only talked about it in girls, where they start going into puberty like way younger than everyone else, like start getting breast, pubic hair, etc., like by 5, 6, etc. And that can lead to all sorts of other problems because if you start doing all of those systems that early, you can start growing way too early, and it happens much quicker than over the full amount of time when it hits at a normal level. And so most people who get this, they don't normally reach 5 feet in height just because they like shoot up in first grade and then that's it.
Right.
Yeah. And so everything is very weird right now because without x-rays, they can't tell whether you're just on the early end of this curve of people just maturing a little bit earlier or if you have this extra sort of problem that you need hormone treatment for. And it is bonkers.
Why do x-rays help?
Because you're like the growth rate in your bones, like babies have a ton of cartilage in between their bones, but by the time you're an adult, it's all become bone, and your growth plates fuse by the end of puberty. And so if they are looking at, let me see if I get this right, if they're looking at a kid who has started showing all of these signs very early and also their plates are starting to fuse that early, then it's a problem because it'll stop them from growing.
That's weird as heck. I would not have expected that you could x-ray, like, when you were talking about hormones, that would be my instinct. Is like, okay, let's get a blood sample. Let's see what hormones are. Test levels if we can manipulate those. But instead, it's like, no, your bones are actually doing bad things that you can't, or you'd feel maybe as growth pains. Or not.
Well, we don't know if growing pains are... We tried to do a SciShow episode about this, and then there was no research that we could use to back up any answer to whether growing pains exist, so I'm pretty sure we didn't do it.
Well, and your bones are fusing without you knowing.
Super weird.
And you're just stuck.
Yeah.
Oh, man. You'd think that those people just, like, grow up really big, at least in my dumb brain. Like, that they would be just, like, a head start. But if it shuts off for, like, the same time span.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird to me, too. It's like, I would just think you fast forwarded through your life. So you wouldn't even grow bigger than normal. You'd just be, like, skipping ahead in time compared to other people. But instead, if you rush it, then you just get stuck.
I wonder if there's a spectrum of that. Because, like, I know a lot of people who, like, grew really tall really fast and then stopped and are now super short. I don't know if it's, like... Is it like you have this thing or you don't have it? Or is it like a level threshold?
That's the thing that it's... right now it's becoming really hard to determine. Like it used to be, below a certain age, obviously. But now since people are seeing, especially secondary sexual characteristics showing up earlier, it's becoming harder to tell whether or not this person needs to be on hormone therapy or it's going to mess them up. Or if it's just... This just happening a little early. It seems like a new sort of thing that hasn't really, there's no real hard line.
Yeah, and now that people are like aware of this, and it's like probably like a common diagnostic thing to like check for, that's good that they'll be able to catch it earlier and probably mitigate some of the weird effects that it has.
Yeah.
I feel like it's really interesting because we talk about all the things like technology might be affecting us in weird ways that we don't expect. But this seems just like a societal... we don't really have a known cause for it, but it's just a way in which people's bodies are systematically changing.
Over time. I mean, there are a lot of theories pointing at
nutrition or other things.
Nutrition. Some people think it's types of plastics.
Also, I've heard stuff about like milk hormones and stuff, but I don't know how well backed up that is.
All the like estrogen mimics that are in tons of various hormones for cows and things, and in weird other things like BPBs I think they can act like estrogen in some situations. And so right now it's really unknown if any of these are actually a cause or if it's just something that's happening or
weird.
So not at the extreme side of it, but early puberty in general.
Right.
So I know there's at least one link to breast cancer, like more incidents of breast cancer, but are there other risks associated with it?
Well, the breast cancer is definitely one thing that came up in this, just because the longer you were exposed to estrogen in your body, it just increases your chances, which that's so great. Yeah, and the thing that I was reading, there's no relation between when you go through menopause and when you start your period. Like, they're totally different systems. So the longer the distance is between those two things, the higher your risk can be for cancer. But most of the other problems that came up from just like people sort of going through puberty earlier and not in this is going to mess up your growth rate, etc. Most of it was a societal and psychological kind of problems. Yeah.
Okay. So it's a weird thing with sometimes not good consequences, but in a lot of ways, just a weird thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. They're going to be reading our diaries from like 200 years in the future.
Have so much data. They're going to have so much data on us in 100 years.
Zanga, Blogspot.
No one's going to care about our diaries because they have the internet or some form of internet.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Diary.
There are millions of them.
Billions.
You got to catalog them in. Yeah, I don't know.
They'll have good data processing methods.
Oh,
probably. That's gather.
Yeah, all my recaps when I was 15 of what happened on the Late Show or the Late Late Show. I just wrote down all the jokes.
I did that for The Good Wife. Crazy. I had a blog that I started with my friend in caps lock. We would do caps locked reviews of the new The Good Wife episodes.
That's hard to read after a while. I'm just like,
if you're in the caps locky fandom, it's
hard
to read. That's just how we talk. It's been a while.
It's like an old man just typing away.
Yeah, I'm in the lowercase, all lowercase.
Yeah, either way. Definitely was a time period where like
Cummings.
All E. Cummings versus yelling person. Both have their
just very
nuances.
Excited.
Yeah. All the memes, all that all caps.
That's true.
Lol cats and whatever else.
That is in the caps. Oh, man.
Impact.
I didn't even realize I've chosen a side in this war accidentally, just like how I write on the internet.
Oh, I definitely am not a capitalizer generally.
Me neither. I mean, anymore. I don't.
You used them all up.
I don't believe in a shift key. It's caps lock or no caps at all.
Whoa. It's a hard line.
Oh,
exactly.
That's a stance.
How do you do work emails? Just caps on and off.
It depends who I'm talking to, honestly. Some work emails don't have capital letters.
No, internal. Why? Yeah. Why bother? Extra finger movement.
Yeah. Gotta preserve that energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good. I have no segue into my topic.
Cool.
So, good. But I will go. And I always default into cell bio because that's my comfort zone. And it's something that I can answer questions about and bullshit a little bit and not feel okay with.
And you can pronounce really long names of proteins.
Yeah, I can really...
What was the one you said this morning?
Aldehyde dehydrogenase?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. That's not very long.
It seems long to me.
It sounds impressive when you say it.
Yeah,
anyway.
Just say
it's a lot of syllables.
Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Nice. I guess this is not related to menstruation really, but it's related to development because it's just really, really amazing to me how our bodies has so many different specialized cell types and we all start as just one. So like one fertilized egg, and then that one cell replicates its DNA and then divides into two, and then they replicate and then divide, and then very specific signaling pathways in that. So switches in DNA get turned on and off, or they're in contact with different kinds of cells, and then they become everything from like your liver to your stomach to your skin to your eyes, and they all have such special purposes. And when a cell can turn into lots of different cell types, that's called a pluripotent cell. Pluri meaning multiple, potent I think just can turn into many things.
Multi-purpose cell.
Yeah, multi-purpose cell. It's a multi-tool. It's the Swiss Army knife of cells. But this means it's really, really weird when a pluripotent cell turns into a tumor. And a tumor just meaning like abnormal growth of tissue.
Sure.
And it's called a teratoma when this happens. And these are tumors with all kinds of shit inside. And I hate them. They almost made me barf while looking at them. But it's like a tumor that grows and they can have like teeth inside or hair or eyes or like patches of yellow fat. And so, yeah,
Like a mystery blob.
I can
but it's
confirm-
always bad.
But I can confirm the almost perfect.
yeah, it's like a
share an
Kinder
office.
egg, but if the surprise is really gross.
I wonder what's in the Wonder Ball.
Yeah. Oh no. I remember Wonder Balls. They were good. Now they're not.
Now they're ruined forever.
And the origin of this word is I read it was Greek. The terato or the terado. I don't know how to say it as an individual word. Means monster. And the oma means tumor. So it's basically a monster tumor, which makes sense
Excellent.
because there's pictures of them that have basically a jawbone inside.
Yeah. But it's not like anything that could be anywhere close to like a viable human ever, right? It's just random parts that grew.
Can there be like nervous tissue in there?
They have found like brain tissue equivalent.
So, I
in there.
mean, it's getting alarmingly close to another person.
Yeah.
But it's not the same thing as if you had identical twins and one was absorbed. It's not like a teeny bit of one of them, right?
No.
So as your DNA, your whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually these come from, so they're interesting because the research into teratomas spawned a lot of research into embryonic stem cells, which we're now used for or are looking into for a lot of different gene therapies. But what they are is a version of mutated germ cells, so the cells that turn into egg and sperm inside humans or inside embryos. And when those cells, something goes wrong with them or something goes wrong in the early stages of differentiation where it's like one cell break or distributes itself inside an embryo or inside a human and it just doesn't specialize along with the rest of the tissue. For whatever reason, we're not exactly sure why the signaling would get messed up. And so it happens a lot, or I guess a lot meaning a non-zero amount in babies near the bottom of their tailbone for some reason. Like there's a special kind of teratoma called a sacrococcygeal. I didn't take anatomy and physiology, so I don't know how to say
like
this.
something probably.
Yeah, like the
sacrum and coccyx, those are all down there, right?
Yeah. So at the base of the tailbone, and so sometimes there's this tumor mass at the bottom of the tailbone for some reason. That is a place in development where things can get messed up, apparently.
Wow.
Do doctors normally do stuff with that, or does it depend on the size? Or
It depends on the size. One statistic I read said about 10,000 teratomas are probably discovered each year, which makes it sound very scary because people could have them inside them and not know.
But they'll grow pretty big eventually, though, right?
Not necessarily.
But they're not necessarily like terrible for you. It's just like a weird thing that you don't need.
Yeah, it's a weird.
Yeah, can they be malignant?
They can be malignant, not often.
Okay.
So basically what happens is the cell that would normally differentiate and become all the parts of you and know how to order themselves, they just differentiate until they stop and they reach their final stage. So that's when they form hair and teeth and things like that because they've become a hair cell inside your body.
is it like totally random what they might happen to turn into, or they're like influences like internal environmental influences, or like it's weird.
Yeah,
It's weird.
it's very weird to think. And some people have them and don't find them until they have an ultrasound or something like that. And then they find out that in their gut, there's just this blob.
I just assume that like I've seen a few stories of like big, like hairy, toothy things in people, but I just assumed it was something to do with the twin thing, but that it's not. That's weird.
Yeah. I think the way that they grow and what grows inside them depends on what the initial cell differentiates into. So this is kind of how they were discovered and kind of why they are cool in the scientific world. There was a dude who was hired. His name was Leroy Stevens.
Leroy Jenkins. Sorry,
Yeah.
I can't not do that.
I know, it sounds so... It's
Any Leroy.
ridiculous. Any Leroy. They're cursed. So he was hired... He was a developmental biologist and hired by a lab who got a grant from a tobacco company to study, and I hate this, the fact... They wanted to prove that the paper in cigarettes was causing cancer, not the tobacco.
When was this?
Oh.
1953.
Okay. At least it wasn't like 1995.
Yeah.
But still horrible.
But that's what he was hired to do. He was
Come
like,
on.
come into this lab, here, do this experiment to prove that it is not the
So
tobacco.
we'll have paper that's better than the other paper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's gross and an example of
Well,
like,
at least something good came out of it, I guess.
yeah, kind of. And so basically what he was doing was dividing up the cigarette into its component pieces, trying to give mice cancer. As you do. And one day he noticed a mouse in one of his batches of mice that had a huge like scrotal tumor. So he killed it and looked inside, and it had stuff like hair and like mouse hair and teeth inside this weird tumor. He's like, what the crap is this? What happened to my mouse? And
Paper is terrible.
yeah,
Real bad.
so bad for the mice. This is what paper does, kids.
It lets you grow teeth inside.
Ever want a second set of teeth? Just grow your own.
Yeah, why are fake dentures a thing if you can just
Oh, yeah.
grow your own teeth?
Totally.
I mean... you could do that.
Grow your own wonder
you
ball
can-
inside
yeah.
you, pull it out, and then hatch it open.
Yeah.
It's just a perfect set that goes right in.
Don't worry about it. I got my gut teeth.
We got teeth.
I've been working on these for 50 years.
I think there was a House episode or something where someone grew an ear inside under their skin or something like that.
Oh.
Like they could grow the cartilage. I don't know if that was real 'cause it
On
was
purpose,
House, but-
or-
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
They needed a replacement ear.
Sure.
It sounds like a thing that might be real.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Like they grew that ear on the back of that mouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ears are easy, apparently.
Yeah.
They're cartilage.
Yeah.
mostly.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to specialize tissue.
Yeah.
Continue.
But anyway, yeah. Then, so basically what he learned from this, and he eventually bred mice to favorably have teratomas and figured out a couple things. One, that he could see the cells develop and kind of try to organize themselves, because the process of development involves a lot of very careful folding and rearranging of tissues. So we started to see, like, if one of them differentiates into a liver cell, then the cells around it will preferentially differentiate into other liver cells, or hair follicles will grow near epithelial tissue, which is like skin and things like that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then he worked backwards and tried to figure out, okay, now I know kind of the process of development. What happens when, like, at what point is it going wrong? And he realized that it's when the germ cells, the cells that develop into sperm and eggs, end up mutating in such a way that they look like basic embryonic stem cells.
So is it the initial sperm and egg that made the fetus, or is it the germ cells inside that fetus that will one day be its sperm and eggs?
That one.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, not the initial embryo, because I think that would just mutate in general. Yeah.
It got excited. The mic fell over.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back on the, so it's the germ cells that are in the person. Mm-hmm. So are tetratomas more likely to happen near where you would have those cells? Like, is in your ovaries or in your testes, or like in that area? Are they more likely, or why do they end up somewhere else if they don't?
I think they are likely to be near the ovaries and things like that. I think there are other tumor-like growths that can happen because of the pluripotency of those cells.
Would cysts count as that too? So no, that's a really common thing in ovaries and stuff.
I don't think they technically count as a teratoma, but they're a very similar type of growth where it's just uncontrolled and not necessarily
I thought
malignant.
I could be completely wrong about this, but I thought cysts were more like capsules where fluid accumulates.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know medical terminology well enough. That sounds right.
That sounds right.
There are also other ovarian growths, though, that are similar to teratomas that is just specifically ovary cells proliferate and form these masses that aren't harmful, but they're just there and probably not good, but not bad either.
Right.
Benign.
Yes, as they say. Yeah.
Alyssa, you're, according to like dictionary.com,
Ooh.
that's like a cyst would be like a sack of liquid, basically.
Hooray for dictionary.com.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess a cyst would probably be if something got infected or was trying to.
That might be an abscess. But I don't know.
Too many possibilities of
We're all
things
doctors
inside
here.
you that aren't normal.
I am a fully certified internet trained Google affiliated doctor.
So you're
I'm
a
WebMD.
Have a WebMD.
You have a page and you're dispensing advice to people? Is that how that works?
Yeah. Anyway, that was my weird story about tooth tumors.
Awesome.
Am I next because I'm second most?
Yes.
Yes.
You're next. But first we should do beer
I was
sponsor.
about to say, I wanted to say that I noticed that I like this beer, and I don't often like beers, and this one I like. The one that I specifically like is the Lux et Veritas, which I'm sure I'm pronouncing wrong, and I have no idea what it means.
It's the Grizz Montana Lager.
It's probably a motto for UM or something, I'm guessing.
Light of truth, right? Would be
Light of truth?
Yeah.
Light
I
and
think that's
Veritas would be truth.
maybe? I don't know what et means.
I think
it
that's
means
and.
and.
Yeah.
Okay.
Light and truth.
Yeah. So thanks, Big Sky Brewing Company, for your good beer and
so
good
adult.
stuff. Yeah. Usually someone cracks one open, but we
gotta finish one really quickly if I do that.
yeah. So we're very grateful that they sponsor us.
Yes.
So being drunk is something that humans are weird.
Have you done an episode on drunkenness before? I think that could
Holy
be a good
Fucking
one.
Science?
Yeah.
Ooh, that would be good.
There's lots of weird ways you could go with that.
Yeah, because we don't understand anything about it, or basically, because it's supposed to be poison, it would be bad, and then instead our brains do weird things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes bird brains do them too, and then they're all flapping around drunk in the spring. You see that
Or
SciShow?
you can eat bread and then get drunk, some people, also from a SciShow.
Yeah.
too.
Just take all
Let's
the...
just recap.
If you don't already watch SciShow, you should go watch SciShow because it's great, and none of us are biased.
Not at all.
I don't work for you guys.
It's true.
You still have a vested interest,
I do.
given that
I
your
do,
boss
extremely.
is
Yes.
the owner of SciShow
Yeah.
also.
I miss helping out with stuff, but
So,
Yeah, Alyssa,
yeah.
when you're ready.
Speaking of scrotal tumors,
Yep.
oh god,
There we go.
mine is not going to fit in with the theme we've established so far.
yeah, there's a lot of talk about. There will be a lot of talk about cancer, but you know what? Humans, that's a thing that happens. You did not want to be a chimney sweep in 1775.
I know about this.
Okay. Well, then you can nod along and insert extra details
Sing along
when you
at
know
home.
them.
Yeah.
So you really didn't want to be a chimney sweep in 1775 because that was when it was first noticed that sometimes cancer could be an occupational hazard by a doctor named Percival Potts, which I really like his name.
Very good.
That's good. That sounds like children's book
It really
level
does
of
sound
name
like a children's
there.
book. Anyway, he noticed that a lot of his patients who had scrotal cancer were chimney sweeps, and he postulated that the reason why was because they were He postulated that I've had too much beer. Clearly. His theory was that it had to do with soot exposure. So because the way he describes the conditions for chimney sweeps at the time is just like horrific. Basically, the flexible brush hadn't been invented yet. So what these master chimney sweeps would do is they would send in their apprentices, who were little kids, basically, sometimes as young as 4, and they would climb into the chimney and they would like clear it out themselves. And sometimes like it was like 9 by 14 inches or something, the chimneys they were climbing into. Like, it was not good. And they would end up covered in soot, and they would often like do this naked because they needed to fit into these small spaces. And even when they weren't naked, they were wearing like baggy shirts and pants. Like, I don't know, I guess that was what people wore at the time. And Potts's theory was that the soot would accumulate in the folds of the scrotum, and then later on in life, pretty much always after puberty, they would get scrotal cancer. And he also describes, I think it was him, it might have been another doctor who I was reading who was writing about this, but sometimes these people, when they got scrotal cancer, would like isolate it with like a metal rod type of thing where they could like isolate, because it was a squamous cell carcinoma, which is a small lesion, basically, like a circle with raised edges. They would like isolate it as best as they could and then just cut it off.
I hate that.
Yeah.
It makes sense, but I don't like it.
Yeah. And then there were people who wouldn't do that and wouldn't get treatment for a really long time, and then they'd have these horrible tumors, and not tumors, they would have these horrible cancers, and then they would die. But here's the thing. Even though he realized this in 1775, and within the next few decades, the government, this was mostly happening in England, so the government was like, maybe we should improve working conditions for these kids, and like no kids younger than 8 should do this, should be chimney sweeps.
Were adults having this happen too, or just more often kids because they were the ones that were forced to like climb?
Well, the adult chimney sweeps were probably apprentices when they were kids, so it might not have been easy to tell the difference. But it usually didn't happen until they were older. Like, I think the median age was 38 or something.
Yeah.
So the government was also like, let's make it mandatory that kids bathe, that these kids bathe once a week.
Got some basics down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that wasn't enforced. And meanwhile, in other countries, they started having their chimney sweeps wear tight-fitting clothes so that they wouldn't have soot accumulating anywhere.
Right.
And, like, bathe every once in a while also. And so it was mostly a thing that happened in the UK because that is where that stuff wasn't enforced, and, like, kids were just getting full of soot and then would later have cancer. And so that was the first time that we found out that an environmental that something in the environment could be a carcinogen, and the first time we found out that you could get cancer from your job. So that was a pretty big milestone in our understanding of how humans get cancer and stuff like that. And they eventually figured out that a similar thing was happening to mule spinners, which I was like, what's a mule spinner? Yeah, exactly. I was like, mules, riding on mules, dancing with mules? I don't know.
Like a strong man, like, sitting.
That's
Just like on a finger.
Yeah.
But actually it had something to do with weaving, like looms and stuff. It was one of the stages in the giant looms that they would use. And again, it was kids who were working in the factories, and there was a component of the machine that had to be oiled that was close to the groin area for kids of that height. And so later on, they would also get scrotal cancer, basically.
Is that just because those areas of the body aren't cleaned as well, and it's easier for stuff to get trapped there?
Yes.
Okay, that was
because it's like wrinkled and stuff, so it would get trapped there. Yeah. They tried to test this out on animals to figure out, like, if that's actually what was happening. Like, they implanted soot into like under the skin
Yeah.
in mice and rats, I think. And they had a really hard time getting them to develop cancer. But
Weird.
when they tried hard enough by like injecting, I think they injected rats every day for like months, several times a day. And then eventually they started seeing evidence of it. But even though it was really hard, and a recent review I found said that there's like inadequate evidence to say that this happens in animals. But there's plenty of evidence, like we know for sure this is what's happening in humans.
Right. Because it's a long-term effect. It would probably be harder to get to
Right.
to happen on something that doesn't live that long.
That's true.
Yeah. And we pretty much know how it happens. It has to do with these molecules that are polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. So basically carbon and hydrogen. Ceri would know this better than me, but basically carbon and
Got
hydrogen arranged in circles.
Yeah.
Multiple circles.
And aromatic says something about how they're bonded together. But
I trust you
yeah.
on that one.
You're good.
Yeah, so the specific molecule that was the problem was a chemical in coal soot called benzo-A-pyrene, which, when it gets into our bodies, we metabolize it into this other compound that affects P53. And P53 is like the tumor suppressor gene. It's the one that, like I was just editing a script about this for SciShow this morning, it's the one that stops, there are lots of genes involved in preventing cancer, but it's like the one. The king of those. I don't know.
So just like no cell, don't do that.
It'll destroy, right, Ceri? It'll destroy the cell if it's...
I think so. I think it's like if activated, will tell the cell, like, something wrong is happening. Like, let's
Time to die.
self-destruct now. Yeah. I isolated it in college for some lab class, I think.
Nice.
But
From what?
I think it wasn't, I say Mina cells was the cell line. It wasn't the
Not HeLa
Henrietta
cells?
Lacks. It wasn't HeLa cells, but it was like similar
Crazy.
either breast or ovarian cancer strain that my professor was working on.
Oh.
So,
That's cool.
yeah, I don't know. Shrug.
Yeah.
Tangent.
Shrug. I do very complicated science things.
Yeah, I have
science
never
things.
isolated a gene of any kind.
I don't know. All I learned from lab.
have I if you're playing against Ceri.
I have done PCR on my own DNA, but I have not, like in some experiment in school also, but not isolated a gene.
PCR
Oh
protein.
my.
You know the song? You know the PCR song? Is that
There's a
what you were
PCR
singing?
song? No. Whoa. I did not know there was a
People
song.
at home,
What?
look up on YouTube the PCR song.
Oh.
It's, I think, originally an ad for a PCR machine.
Of
But
course.
Why
it
was
is-
there an
boring,
ad?
though.
But
Who's
it is
buying them?
the most wonderful way to memorize how like how you do PCR. It's like goes when you need to detect mutations. It's hilarious. Like they have a whole like
fun.
staff. It looks like the
Is it
staff
like a
of this
really
company dancing
cheery,
around.
like,
Yeah, they're
number?
dancing and singing, and it's just it's
Wow.
very nice. Like
Wow.
salute to
Get
PCR
your
machines.
primers, stick them inside.
something like that.
PCR. Amplify that
It's
gene.
really helpful for
Stick it
HIV.
in
love
bacteria.
science facts turned into jingles and songs.
Yeah.
They're annoying, but normally helpful.
I get it. Like it's stuck in my head right now. I get it stuck in my head all the time, and I haven't taken bio in many years.
That's great.
Anyway, so PCR, no, P53. So when this compound messes with P53 in DNA, it like basically in the skin of the scrotum. Later on, if the person develops other genetic mutations in the cell, it can turn cancerous, and that is how so many chimney sweeps ended up with scrotal cancer. And this is a mostly unrelated story, but I really needed to say it because it's one of those stories that just needs to be said. There was while we're talking about scrotal cancer.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, go switch to something later, but no.
No,
Yeah, no.
Keep it going.
In the days before, like it's just a thing that I encountered, and I need to share it with
Please
the world.
do.
So,
Okay.
There was, in the pre-anesthesia days, there was this doctor who was famous for how quickly he could do surgeries, because obviously you wanted them to go faster so that people would scream less. And also, like, people apparently used to, like, get up and escape the people pinning them down and run out of the emergency room. Or whatever, out of the operating room while being operated on. I don't blame them. So,
That sounds horrible.
yeah, there was this guy, I think Dr. Liston was his name, and he once was able to remove a 45-pound scrotal tumor in 4 minutes. That was one of his many claims to fame.
Is that remove or like also
Chop.
fix back up the scrotum after the fact?
I think the whole thing, like, chop and sew.
Chop and
Because this was the same guy who could, like, amputate a leg in 2 minutes.
And Lister as in Listerine.
Liston.
Right? Liston? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Weird.
I believe that was his name. Yep,
So
Robert
good.
Liston.
Was this in the time where like a ton of people would watch surgeries happen, or is this before that?
There were other people in the room watching. It was like
Yeah.
the 1800s. He
But,
was
like
also
those big like performance venues.
Yes.
Not really.
Oh,
but
no,
like,
I don't know.
what are
Theater.
they called? Yeah.
I know what you're
operating
talking
theater.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but he was also the first known doctor to use ether, like as to anesthetize his patients. Like
yeah.
the same guy who was so great at lopping off tumors in 4 minutes was also the one who was like, hey, maybe we should put people to sleep with ether while we're operating on them so they don't have to scream as much. Anyway,
Well,
I had to share that. I'm sorry.
Good.
That was a little off topic.
God.
No. It's all good.
It's all in the scrotal tumor theme.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, maybe that's what this should be. Holy fucking science, scrotums, and because
well.
puberty,
Yeah.
tumors, scrotal cancer.
We can end right now, and that can be what it is. Because
I want to hear what you
I've got nothing else on the topic. Okay, so my turn.
Yeah.
It is.
Not talking about any of the things that we have been at all. Humans, anglerfish, worms, jellyfish, mushrooms
Okay.
all
Okay.
emit light.
Humans emit light.
Yes, they do.
Please explain.
That's the holy fucking science.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Not very much. It's visible, but not visible by humans. Like it's in the visible light spectrum, but it's about 1/1000th the like potency that we need to be able to see it.
Huh.
How do we know?
So I think this is a thing that's been known for a while. Actually, most living organisms emit these are very, very small
Yeah, you said
amounts.
mushrooms.
Fungi do.
Okay.
Some fungi.
I didn't know that.
Some of all of these ones, according to Wikipedia. Anyway, when I looked at bioluminescence, they were all on the list.
Oh yeah.
So humans emit tiny amounts of light. This was, I don't know if it was discovered, but it was maybe done in an efficient, like, they captured the images in a really efficient way in this study that was in 2009 by Japanese researchers. They had, I believe, 5 men in their 20s who were on like a regular sleeping, eating schedule, all of that, go into a super dark room, take their shirts off. They wiped them down. And then they had a very like strong, good camera pointed at them.
How many people did you say this was?
I think it was 5.
Okay.
Were
they all?
No, separately.
In my head, they're all models, but okay, continue.
Yeah. Well, you couldn't see them at all except for so the scientists using a camera that can detect light or that could capture light at like a single photon level, basically, would do 20-minute exposures.
Oh wow.
Which is like not that long in the grand scheme of things to be
Yeah.
able to capture it. Let me see how often that was. I forgot. Yeah, 20-minute long pictures every 3 hours during basically like work hours. I think it was like from 10.
Wait, they had to stand for that long?
They sat in a chair or something
okay.
probably. So it's just like they just did it from the torso up, I think.
So they
It's
just
a fun way to live in a dark room
Yeah.
for a day.
So just
Yeah.
well, hanging out in the room for the 20 minutes, and I think they were allowed to go do whatever.
Okay.
And then they were 3 hours later. They came back and did it for 3 days. They did that.
Can't even watch a movie.
Yeah, he's like, nope, time to go sit in the dark for 20 more minutes. They had normal sleep schedules and stuff. And yeah, they documented that. And the light was strongest around the face, like
weird.
particularly the middle of the face. And they think that that's because the head is more exposed to sunlight, and it might be something in the melanin that is like the thing that produces slight amounts of light, just because there's more there.
So we're not fluorescing, really.
No, it's, if I can
Because that would
try
be
to
amazing.
explain in a simple way. Yeah, it's not like an enzyme reaction, sort of, how in like with, or like however chemiluminescence or bioluminescence is. It's created by biochemical reactions involving free radicals, which are unpaired electrons. Yeah, it's just like super weak light having something to do with.
Interesting.
And also the light, this is weird, it changed levels throughout the day. So like it was kind of low in the morning, and this is like similar over all 5 patients. And then it like peaked at about 4 p.m. And then went back down again, which was like sort of in rhythm with like circadian and metabolic levels of things.
Weird.
Which is really weird. And it doesn't have anything to do, and there's no correlation between the visible light and like heat or infrared like giving off, because like I think the warmest areas of the body, or at least in the face region, are like on the neck rather than like the middle of the face.
That makes sense.
So it doesn't really have anything to do with that.
Yeah.
And the researchers said that this kind of imaging might hypothetically be helpful to see if there are issues with people's metabolic issues, because it's like kind of like a weird imaging of that, which
That seems
really weird.
Yeah, that seems like that is, if the technology gets cheap enough, that is ripe for pseudoscience.
No, exactly.
Like,
That's what I was thinking.
I took your
Your
aura
aura.
picture.
Yeah.
and
Oh, I'm
well-
sure there are people doing that without this research to back them up.
Yeah, it's like you have to sit still for 20 minutes.
Your light's
in the dark.
very dim right now. I think you should buy these supplements.
Sit in this box. It'll improve your orgone. Or whatever.
yes.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Wilhelm Reich.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
Today I learned I'm a light bulb.
That's good.
A very, very dim light bulb.
Very dim bulb.
So like you could say that someone's glowing, because they are, and most things are. But like,
But
it's
you
really
are too.
weird.
Yeah. Snap. Now I want them to like look at pregnant ladies. Is it true?
Yeah. I feel like that would be interesting, because like there's definitely different metabolic things going
Yeah.
on when you're pregnant, right? Compared to
Yeah.
20-year-old
Probably.
men or whatever.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. That's weird to me. The middle of the face thing is weird.
Yeah.
Like, why are your cells working so hard there? I don't know.
Yeah.
Or why is it, like, I don't know if it's physics related at all. Like, would there be a way for light to be focused to that point in your face?
Well, based on what Val was saying about the sun exposure thing, maybe it's like, and melanin and stuff. So those, like your nose and this area of your face, the area of your face that's most exposed to sunlight.
Yeah, cheeks were the most, and then upper neck, forehead.
So more of those cells are probably destroying and destroying themselves because the sun does that.
Slightly
So I want to
burned.
know if you like, if they took someone who like stayed inside all the time and didn't get any sun exposure, would they be emitting less light
Versus someone who was super sunburned.
Yeah.
That would be kind of mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's I don't know enough, and the paper was like really dense with fancy terms, and I tried to look up context for all of them, but I couldn't. But yeah,
I am
something to
familiar with
do
that
with
feeling.
lipids and melanin and something and
Yeah.
things doing other things. There was also another study that I found that was like done. I don't think this was in 2009, and I don't think that this was the first time where it was like discovered that people glow in quotation marks. Because there was another one that I read that was just about hands, like they'd done it for a hand, and I think they said that the fingernails were much brighter than the other parts of the hand.
I just looked at my hands like,
I did exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
But I think there's glow in the dark nail polish. I could be wrong about that.
Oh, I'm sure
there
there
totally
is.
But there's all kinds
Yeah.
of cool nail polish out there.
we're just glowing. We're just glow in the dark. If
Yeah,
it's
that was like
sun-related-
all the headlines that like when I looked up after the paper, it was like
Yeah.
humans glow in the dark, humans literally
Oh, yeah.
shine, humans are bioluminescent, which is technically if you use like a very specific definition of bioluminescence, it's not bioluminescence. It's something else.
Got it.
But yeah, when I was in school, I did like multiple like science fair things on bioluminescence and chemiluminescence. I thought it was cool. Glow in the dark stuff's cool, but also the words were really long. So when I wrote papers, I could fill up a lot of space and just write bioluminescence over and over again in them. Yeah.
Are you
good
talking
stuff.
like grade school or college?
I mean, they were very basic. I think it was like 6th, 7th, 8th grade, something like that.
That's all scientific papers really are. They don't
A bunch of long words?
Yeah, because they just want it to sound fancy to fill space and like have legitimacy in a field. I could explain every scientific paper in simpler
That's
terms.
what we do for a living.
It's good. That's why you're on this podcast a lot, because you can do that very efficiently. And I'm like, it said something about something and I can't remember even after I read it because I can't tell what it means.
Sometimes, honestly, I judge the authors a little bit because I know exactly what they're doing. Like, I was reading a paper today where in the first line it talks about a paradigm shift. And I'm just like, that's one of the buzzwords that you put in papers because it's like, paradigm shift, everything is changing,
Yeah, it
you
sounds
guys.
very dire and cutting edge and crazy.
Important.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, that was pretty short, but that's my thing.
No,
I was
that
trying
works.
to find other reasons why humans might glow that weren't like conditions or like environmental effects and stuff, but I could not really find anything because it was just all leading to this one. All the like popular science-y websites that were just talking about this one article, and I was like, no, I want to know if like somebody like fell into a vat of weird stuff and then glowed for a while. Yeah,
And then when they get angry, they turn into a big green monster.
yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that a lot. I had no idea. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's like, I think that like on the brightest part at the brightest time, it was, let me double check. I believe it was 1,000 photons per second per square centimeter.
That seems like a lot. I mean,
Oh
I
wait,
know
3,000 photons per second per square centimeter.
that also seems like
It's
a
like
lot.
the peak time of the peak brightness of something. Yeah.
I mean, I know we can't see 3,000 photons, but that's more than one.
Yeah,
That's true.
This is the level of stuff where it's just like it's small. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that these lights we have are emitting way more than 3,000 photons per second.
Yeah. You have to we have to sit still for 20 minutes and then you can see some slight something going on.
That's the end of the video podcast. Is just us sitting in the darkness for 20 minutes.
Let's do it. We're going to go do that now.
Yeah, turn up the exposure really, really high. Open that aperture. I only know film terms because I did crash course film. I don't know anything about cameras.
Yeah, that works.
I would have believed
are
you.
all
Things.
Yeah. Well, cool. So thanks, everyone. This is really fun. And thank you to Caitlin Hofmeister, who's been behind the camera and doing sound like a boss. And thank you to whoever's going to edit this, Tuna or Sam or Hiroka. Hiroka might be. Okay, cool. I guess I have been and will continue to be Ceri Riley.
I'm still Sarah Suta.
I am glowing like Alyssa Lerner.
And I'm Valerie Barr.
And this has been Holy Fucking Science!